Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to another episode of Quran in English. My name is Ahmed, and I'm happy to take you through the fourth and final section of Surah Al Anbiya, the chapter of the prophets. We've had story time in the last chapter in the last episode, so I was very excited. And now we're going to finish off with a few more dimensions of the prophets and then a few overall lessons. But first, let me explain what we're doing here. This channel is designed as an education channel, and I'm here sharing my education journey about the discovery of the Quran with you. I approach it from the perspective of a believer. I believe that this is the word of God as revealed to the Prophet Muhammad. I believe in every word, in everything that is being said. And I'm trying to understand what exactly is the Quran saying, and I'm starting specifically with what the Quran is saying, not looking at everything within the Islamic community. And I have perspectives that differ from the Islamic community. But the purpose of this channel is education. I'm not a Quranic scholar, nor am I an Arabic linguist. I've not studied the Arabic language beyond school, and I've not studied the Quran. In fact, this is my first read-through of the Quran for a lot of it. I'm just sharing with you my understanding as a bilingual Arabic-English speaker and a believer. But if you have a different perspective on something that I say, please feel free to drop a comment. I'm happy to discuss, to learn, to educate myself as much as I hope that you might learn something as well. But that's all the disclaimers we need to do. Let's get into the last section. Some beautiful verses, some interesting people, some interesting stories. So let's give it a go. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. And off we go.
وأيوب إذ نادى ربه أني مسني الضر وأنت أرحم الراحمين.
And Job, Ayub in Arabic, but Job in English, you might have heard of his story, when he called to his God, his Lord, same word for Lord, same word for God. Indeed, it has touched me, adversity has touched me. And here they add the caveat of the loss of his health, the loss of his wealth, the loss of his children. Yeah, Job was tested the most, if I can recall. I don't know Jesus' story that much, so I don't want to kind of complain. But Job is someone Ayub was someone who was completely tested to the brink of insanity and suffering. And he still called out to God, please, adversity has touched me, and you are the most merciful of the most merciful. Arham ar-Rahimin. And again, that's why whenever I see the word al-Rahim, it's the same, it's the word of mercy. Maybe Rahman is different than Rahim, and I'm just being a bit amateurish, but it's kind of, this is how I understand the concept. But essentially, he's still saying that you are the most merciful, and even though he suffered the most, and even though he was under a lot of duress and under a lot of stress and had lost his family, his wealth, his health, he still cried out to God, saying respectfully that you are the most compassionate. And so, what did God do in response?
فاستجبنا له فكشفنا ما به من ضر وآتيناه أهله ومثلهم معهم رحمة من عندنا وذكرى للعابدين.
So of course, we responded to him, and we removed on him what was of adversity. So remember, health, wealth, children, and then we gave him his family and their like thereof with them as a mercy from us and a reminder for all the worshippers. There's an interesting, I don't know where this idea came from, but I saw it in a TV show about Job, and I think the way that it's written in the Bible, someone who's from Christian culture will have to kind of correct me and let me know, but essentially I think the idea was that he lost his children and lost his wife, and then God gave them back to him. And so the TV show and the movie were like, they're just pretending that these people that look exactly like your wife and children are them, which was like It's a wild concept. But that's the idea, is that he lost his children, lost his wife. I don't know if he lost his wife, but I know he lost his children for sure. And then God gave them back to him, which is like, I don't know the specifics of this story, but everything's possible with God. God is capable of doing everything. So bringing back people from the dead is not a problem for God. Just a very interesting analogy. But then it's, yeah, because here, the reason why I laugh is because it says, وَمِثْلَهُمْ, which means, and the like thereof, which kind of is like, he's replaced them with something that looks like them. But the translation here makes it a lot more sense. Twice as many. Mithlahum means, yeah, he gave him what he had as children and another in quantity of what he had. So like his own kids plus his kids and then some, you know. I think that's kind of the main understanding. And it was as a mercy from us and a reminder for the worshippers. So that's all of us. Because the story of Job is in the Old Testament, and so the Christians also look at it, and so do we. We have Ayub, we have Job, it's a very powerful story of patience. It's an important lesson of patience. The main lessons the Quran has been teaching us is don't be arrogant and be patient. Those are the two things that should go hand in hand. And even if you're suffering, or even if you're doing well, both of them are tests and reminding you to be humble, be patient, and seek God's mercy. Yeah.
وإسماعيل وإدريس وذا الكفل كل من الصابرين.
Speaking of patient, and then it says, and Ishmael, which we commonly know as the forefather of Islam, aka the tribe at which the Prophet Muhammad came from. I breathed in. 1 second, sorry. Ismail is the forefather of Muhammad, and where we get the Islamic religion from. Idris, which is Enoch, the book of Enoch. We haven't actually heard that much about Idris. And it says, and Dhul Kifl. Dhul Kifl is like the master of his own fate. That's what it says. The owner of his own, not the owner. Dhul Kifl means share in fate. Dhul Kifl is the one who his own, like he kind of his own share, his own fate. And there have been a lot of theories and hypotheses about who this was. Scholars are in a disagreement about who he was. Those maintain he was a prophet identity with various biblical prophets such as Ezekiel, Isaiah, or Obadiah. I think Ezekiel is the one that I found in multiple sources. I did not find of Isaiah and Obadiah. I don't know. But Ezekiel seems to be the common one. But long story short is, we don't know who Dhul Kifl is exactly. We have a few theories. Probably Ezekiel, probably somebody else. We're not sure. But all of them were the patient ones. And again, that seems to be a very strong quality desired in God's prophets and also messengers. But yeah, here we're kind of talking about the prophets specifically.
وأدخلناهم في رحمتنا إنهم من الصالحين.
To correct something I just said, I actually don't know if these are just prophets or if they're prophets and messengers. I don't know the exact split. That kind of specific understanding we're still kind of lacking a little bit. Or at least I'm lacking a little bit. If you have a clearer perspective, feel free to drop it in the comments. They might have been messengers as well as prophets. They might have been just messengers. They might have been just prophets. We don't know. But anyway, it says, and we admitted them all in our mercy, which again, that's kind of the whole point of our existence. The whole point of our existence as descendants of Adam and Eve that fell from heaven is to earn God's mercy upon us so that we can return back to heaven, or fail to earn his mercy and continue to suffer within this world and the afterlife to begin. And indeed, they were the righteous. Very clear. Patient. Ask for mercy. Be righteous. Oh.
وذا النون إذ ذهب مغاضبا فظن أن لن نقدر عليه فنادى في الظلمات أن لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إني كنت من الظالمين.
Now this is very interesting. It says, and of the noon. Noon is a letter in the Arabic. It's the letter. You'll see it. It's like the U with a dot above it. You can kind of see it. The U with a dot above it. It's also this noon, but this is what it looks like on its own. Then noon is like the one of the noon. But we know, we hear it's translated as to who we understand him to be. We understand him to be the man of the whale, aka Yunus. I once had an opportunity to like explore all the different verses that talk about the Nun and talk about Yunus and try to see how those two stories are aligned. How are we sure that they are the same person? I believe in my first attempt to find the connections, I was able to find the connection to the Quran showing that the Nun is Yunus. But I will probably revisit this at the end of the series when I take certain topics and certain people and certain identities and certain concepts, and flesh out all the different verses that talk about them. But for discussion's sake right now, let's take the Nun as Yunus, as the man of the whale, because Yunus was swallowed by the whale, which we believe because there's other verses that say that he was on the ship and then they drew lots and he drew the short end of the stick, so they sacrificed him to the water so that they can appease the rest of their journey. But either way, let's see what it says about the Nun, the man of the whale. When he went angrily, then he thought that we would never decree, we would never be capable of, we would never restrain him. نقدر عليه. Yeah, we would not. Decree is not. Yeah, decree is from qadar, to put something on his fate. But naqdir is also to be capable over him, and that we wouldn't do anything about him. So the concept here is that he was a prophet and a messenger, I think, and he was tasked with the understanding is that he was tasked with a message to his people, but his people weren't listening, so he got angry and he left, thinking that there aren't going to be any consequences, and there aren't going to be any repercussions. And then he gets on the ship, gets thrown off the water, gets swallowed by a whale. And then the verse continues here. So then he called there in the darkness. So we understand this to be called within the whale. All of those context is kind of missing. But I think in other verses it talks about it. It does mention him as the man of the whale in other verses. So in order to get the complete story of any specific prophet or messenger, you always have to go through multiple verses, multiple different sections, and it's kind of like it gives exposition at different times. So it's hard to get it all from this one verse. And he called from the darkness, aka from the belly of the whale, that there is no God except for you. Glory be to you. Indeed, I am of the wrongdoers. Now, fun fact, I say this twice at the end of every my prayer. I say astaghfirullah inni kuntu min al-zalimin, which means I indeed was one of the wrongdoers. This is a habit that I kind of picked up since I first reverted, primarily because when I first reverted I realized that I was misguided for quite some time, and I was a bit lost and I was a bit confused, and I needed God to guide me and help me and bring me back to the correct path. And so yeah, I just built into the habit, and I kind of kept the habit because, you know, even if you're a believer, even if you're trying to do good, we make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes, and we're all trying to do our best, and we're all trying to believe and find the best way forward. So it's just a good one to say. But there's a reason why I also say it all the time, is because I also felt a time when I was in trouble, when my soul needed to be saved, when I was a little bit lost, when I was a little bit confused, very much as the Nun was in the darkness. It says in this verse, it doesn't say the whale, but you can just imagine he was in a dark place, that he went after he was angry. He was angry, he was in a dark place, he prayed to God. And then what happens after you pray to God, asking for mercy and seeking forgiveness?
فاستجبنا له ونجيناه من الغم وكذلك ننجي المؤمنين.
So we responded to him and we saved him from the distress, from the anguish, and thus we save the believers. And that's kind of, there's also, I think that he's mentioned also in As-Safat, which we haven't covered in this. It's one of the chapters of the Quran that we haven't mentioned. We will review. But yeah, it's mentioned that he kind of kept mentioning God's names and praying to God and asking for forgiveness, and essentially he was saved. And that's kind of the philosophy and model that I've taken. So aside from saying that إني من الكافرين استغفر الله العظيم إني من الظالمين, to say that I'm one of the wrongdoers, I also kind of try and mention God's name as often as possible. Allahu Akbar, Subhanallah, Astaghfirullah, Alhamdulillah. Yeah, because it's kind of like aligning yourself with God saving you. And there's this recurring theme throughout the Quran that all peoples are destined for some sort of suffering, some sort of pain, that living in this world, it's not easy. Whether you're obviously, this specific case of the Nun is that he angrily didn't do his duty and he was suffering as a result of it. But also sometimes just life happens and sickness happens and loss of loved ones, and you have to get up and strive and try. So you always have to kind of be praying for God's mercy and praying to God, and praying, of course, if you're praying, you're doing a good enough job. But for me, I just like to follow the lead of what I'm learning from these prophets, and say that I consistently have to ask for forgiveness and for mercy and for guidance. Kind of always reminding you that with God lies our salvation. Yeah.
وزكريا إذ نادى ربه رب لا تذرني فردا وأنت خير الوارثين.
And Zechariah, we covered him in Surah Maryam a couple chapters ago. And Zechariah, when he called to his Lord, my Lord, do not leave me alone, aka without children. وَأَنْتَ خَيْرُ الْوَارِثِينَ, and you are the best of inheritors. Which is I was trying to understand, because I think Zechariah is asking for an inheritor, right? That's what it means to ask for offspring, to ask for children. And at the same time, he's saying, God, you are the best of inheritors. Maybe it's like a form of being humble and saying that, I would love someone to inherit me, but, if only you inherit me, my God, it's still good. I was thinking maybe that kind of concept. If you look at the footnote, it says, meaning you'll be there for eternity after all pass away. I didn't feel like it explained it well enough. It's kind of like sometimes how I feel like when I'm praying for something. You're like, God, please give me this thing. But if I don't get this thing, it's all good. I understand. I understand and accept whatever you give me. And maybe that's the kind of concept. You are the best of inheritors, that even if I don't have anybody inheriting me, you will inherit me and you will take what I have. And that would be best. Maybe that's what it means. But either way, Zechariah asked for it. And if you remember from the chapter of Surah Maryam, Zechariah had a son. Who was that son? Let's see.
فاستجبنا له ووهبنا له يحيى وأصلحنا له زوجه إنهم كانوا يسارعون في الخيرات ويدعوننا رغبا ورهبا وكانوا لنا خاشعين.
So we responded to him and we bestowed him. And I want to point out that it's always responded and then we granted. Because we have seen in another part of the Quran that every prayer gets responded to, but not every prayer gets granted. So it's clear and it's important to say we responded to him and we bestowed upon him. So we responded to him, and we did give him Yahya. Now, if you might not recognize the name Yahya, it loosely translates to John, because sometimes it's Yohanna, sometimes it's Yahya. And Yahya was the first of his name, so John's name. And this is John the Baptist. You might know him from his connection to Jesus, which I think is a very, very interesting character, and he seems very cool. And we cured for him his wife, and we made his wife fertile. Aslahna, cured is kind of correct. I mean, I guess made his wife fertile, but maybe aslahna lahu zawjahu. We made right for him his wife. So it could be cured. It could be made her fertile. She could have been sick and she got better. She could have been infertile and she got fertile. They just say that aslahna lahu zawjahu. We fixed her up. Indeed, they were. Indeed, they used to. So we're talking about the family of. Oh. Yeah, we're talking about the family of Zachariah, his wife, and his kid John. Indeed, they used to hasten in good deeds. So yusari'un fil khayrat, hasten in good deeds. It's a beautiful expression. Like they're trying to do as many good deeds as possible. Bam, 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 bam. Good deed after the other. And another expression from the Quran comes to mind, يَتَسَابَقُونَ فِي الْخَيْرَاتِ, which means they compete or they race in good deeds. And usually when it's talking about Christians, Jews, and Muslims. And we'll cover that differences quite soon in these next verses. But I like this. يَسَرَائِرُونَ فِي الْخَيْرَاتِ. They speed up, they hasten in good deeds, and they call to us, pray to us, in hope and in fear. And those, I feel like, are two sides of the same coin. I'm going to give an example from tarot cards, which is like, I know we're not supposed to be reading tarot cards, but one of the spreads was saying what you hope and fear. And they're both usually connected. You hope something works out, and you fear that it doesn't work out. Right? It's kind of two sides of the same coin for everything. You hope that you have good health, and you fear that you won't have good health. It's the positive and the negative, right, that you're calling for. You're calling for positives, and you're calling to stay away from negatives. It's kind of interesting how hope and fear are intertwined. I always used to say that the opposite of fear is faith. And in a way it is, because if you're afraid something will happen, you don't have faith that it'll happen. And if you have faith that it'll happen, you're not afraid it won't happen, you know? But it depends on what type of fear are we talking about. Having fear versus fearing something. Yeah. But yeah, different kind of concepts. But essentially, the family of Zachariah, Yahya, Zachariah, John, and his wife. I'm trying to read this because this is, and we bestowed on him, Yahya, and we cured for him his wife. This has got to be Zachariah, right? Let's not complicate matter, because I'm like, could it be John? I don't think so. Yohanna. Essentially, they were good people. They sped up in good deeds, and they supplicate, and they called upon us for hope and fear, and they were to us submissive, humble, in awe, kind of like holding God reverent. It's kind of very, very, very beautiful.
والتي أحصنت فرجها فنفخنا فيها من روحنا وجعلناها وابنها آية للعالمين.
And she who guarded her chastity, you may have heard of her before, Maryam, Mary, mother of Jesus, she who guarded her chastity. So we breathed into her from our spirit, and we made her son a sign for the world. Very easy to know who this is talking about. Mary, mother of Jesus, and Jesus is her son, who has made the sign of the world. Now here they've added the word Gabriel, because Gabriel breathed into the sleeves of Mary's garments, so she conceived Jesus. Possibly true. Whenever God says we breathed, again, I said it can refer to God. It can refer to God's agents as well. God's spirit can be its own thing. God's spirit can be delivered from the angels. There's a lot of kind of ideas of how this can be done. But this is definitely talking about Jesus.
إن هذه أمتكم أمة واحدة وأنا ربكم فاعبدون.
Indeed, this is your religion, one religion. This is your religion, a religion that is one. Like all these people, all these prophets, all these messengers, they're all a part of one religion and one tribe. And it doesn't say religion specifically, it says ummatukum, that which you believe in. So religion is kind of the closest, but it's like your faith. It's your faith is one. These are one people, one group. It's a sense of identity. It's a sense of unity between all of them. It's not saying, oh, the Jews, the Christians, the Muslims. However, and I am your Lord, so worship me. Very clear, God is in the message. And here comes the however.
وتقطعوا أمرهم بينهم كل إلينا راجعون.
And they cut off their affairs between them. So here they translated to they divided into sects. I think that kind of makes sense. So all the messengers, all the prophets, they're all saying one message and one clarity, but the people separated in certain ways. And I do believe that that's a part of God's plan, for example, because it said so in chapter 2. All of them will be to us returned. Everyone will go back to God. So the question is, who's right? The Muslims, the Christians, the Jews? Let's simplify. Let's see what the Quran says about this.
فمن يعمل من الصالحات وهو مؤمن فلا كفران لسعيه وإنا له كاتبون.
Then whoever does from good deeds, righteous deeds, while he is a believer. Believer in what? Believer in God, the angels, the afterlife, his messengers, his prophets. Primarily believe in God, primarily believe that there is one God, which technically all the people of the book do. Technically, let's not get into arguments. But whoever does goods and he's a believer, then his effort will not be rejected. And indeed, we are for him the recorders. We record every good deed. Believe and do good deeds. That's it. That's the simple formula for how to get back into God's good graces and how to get back to heaven. Believe, do good. Simple.
وحرام على قرية أهلكناها أنهم لا يرجعون.
It is forbidden for any village that we have destroyed that they will not be returned, resurrected, judged. Every single village, even here specifically talking about the villages that were destroyed, they will be returned. They will be questioned. They will be judged. They will be asked, and they will be treated fairly, essentially, is what is being said. Because, the Quran makes the promise multiple times in the world that no good deed will go unwritten and no bad deed will go unwritten. Everything will be recorded. Everything will be reviewed, and every soul will earn what it got. And they'll do good.
حتى إذا فتحت يأجوج ومأجوج وهم من كل حدب ينسلون.
That is terrifying. Until when it has been opened. Ya'juj and Ma'juj, Gog and Magog. We talked about them in a few verses. They were sealed away by the Dhul-Qarnayn? The one of two horns, right? Yeah, Dhul-Qarnayn. The mighty man that kind of sealed them away because he was traveling along the lines and he found them torturing a village and people, and he sealed them behind a valley, behind a wall that is iron, and that wall will collapse and they will be released as one of the signs of the days of judgment, or just before or just after. It's a bit unclear. But when it's open and Gog and Magog are released, and they are from every elevation descending, swarming down from every hill. And if you want to know the specific verses, we covered them in chapter 18, Surah Al-Kahf. Oh, you can't really see it here. Surah Al-Kahf, 93 to 99. You'll see the story of Dhul Qarnayn. And like, this is the expression of all hell breaks loose. Like, when Gog and Magog are released, GG, things about to go. That just, it feels like a horror film. It feels like devastation. It feels like wildness. Yeah.
واقترب الوعد الحق فإذا هي شاخصة أبصار الذين كفروا يا ويلنا قد كنا في غفلة من هذا بل كنا ظالمين.
And the promise has approached in truth, ushering in the truth. واقترب الوعد الحق. The promise of truth has approached. So then behold, it is staring at the eyes of those who... هي شاخصة أبصار. The ones who disbelieved, sights will stare at it, and they will say, woe to us, verily we had been in a ghafla, in like... Yeah, heedless is the best way to do it. We didn't pay attention. We weren't focusing. Oh my God, we were so like not looking at what we should have been looking at, not focusing on what we should have been focusing at. Of this, nay, we used to be wrongdoers. Ushering in the true promise. I didn't actually see this. Oh, the final hour. Yeah. The final hour, this is Judgment Day, and this is talking about Gog and Magog, when they're released, when all hell's breaking loose, people would be like, this is the end of times. I remember there was somebody else who was saying that the believers won't be worried in this point in time, but the disbelievers will be in horror and crying, and the people who believe will be like, oh yay, Judgment Day. We'll review it when we get to it. And it always says, and it has approached the promise of the true. Oh, okay. So when this is opened, the promise of true would have approached. And this is kind of why it's the sign of the Judgment Day, sign of the end of times. Yeah. And they say, in fact, we used to be wrongdoers.
إنكم وما تعبدون من دون الله حصب جهنم أنتم لها واردون.
Indeed, you and what you worship from besides God are firewood for hell, and you are for it. You're bound to enter it. You're all bound to enter it. We have seen kind of the mention in the past couple of chapters is that the things that people worship are going to distance themselves from those that worship them. I'm going to say that they don't worship. But that's kind of saying they're also due for hell. They're also due for firewood, which I think makes sense. Which does place some culpability on those things as well. Those entities like Hecate, Lucifer, whatever, they do call people to disbelief, but people have to accept the call to disbelief, and both them and what they pray to are going to be firewood for hell, and they're all going to it. What does it say here? See footnote of 43. We haven't reached chapter 43 yet.
لو كان هؤلاء آلهة ما وردوها وكل فيها خالدون.
Now, if those things that they call gods were gods, they would not have entered hell. And this is obviously something that is only going to make sense on Judgment Day, because then you'll know that it's happened. They're in hell. Oh, are they really gods? Like, no, they're suffering in all eternity. And if they were gods, then they wouldn't be entering it, but they're not gods. So, and all in it will abide forever. And usually with the Quran, whenever there's a mention of hell, but we're still going to mention hell first, and then we will mention heaven. Finishing hell off.
لهم فيها زفير وهم فيها لا يسمعون.
For them in it is sighing. Groaning sounds more accurate. It's not exactly wailing, but it's like it is kind of a moaning, a kind of yeah, it's that kind of sound. And they are in it. They will not hear. They will not be able to hear. Huh? وهم فيها لا يسمعون. And in it they will not be able to hear. We have seen in the previous couple of chapters that they will not be able to see within hell. And they'll complain and say, why can't we see? We used to see in the real world. And God will be like, well, you didn't use your eyes to see the truths. You don't get your eyes now. Sorry, I'm adding more sass than need to be. But essentially, they'll also not be able to hear. The Quran does say Sumun Bukman. No? Maybe I'm confusing it. But not seeing and not hearing. But definitely feeling, because they're going to feel a lot of pain and a lot of suffering. And on the counter side, whenever we talk about hell, there is always
إن الذين سبقت لهم منا الحسنى أولئك عنها مبعدون.
And those who what has passed for them from us from the good. إن الذين سبقت لهم منا الحسنى. Yeah, so here the translation, those who we have destined the finest reward, that which has gone forth, that which has passed for them the good. Anyway, those who do good, those are the ones who will be far removed from all that torment, from all that suffering, from all that destruction. They won't even hear, but let's go with the verse and describe it.
لا يسمعون حسيسها وهم فيما اشتهت أنفسهم خالدون.
They do not hear even the slightest sound of hell. And they have, from whatever they desire for their souls, abiding forever. They will delight forever in what their souls desire. I cannot wait. There are a lot of things in this world that I have had to give up to be a good person. And a lot of things I've lost along the way. And both of those things I am looking forward to in heaven so badly. But before heaven, there's a whole life ahead of me. And work and staying humble and keeping myself aligned and keeping asking God for his mercy. Because I want this. I want this. I want it pretty bad. Inshallah, ya Rab.
لا يحزنهم الفزع الأكبر وتتلقاهم الملائكة هذا يومكم الذي كنتم توعدون.
The terror will not grieve them. Oh, the supreme horror of that day will not disturb them. That's kind of what I was talking about. It doesn't feel like on the day of judgment the believers will go, oh no, the believers will go, oh, finally. You see death and destruction, everything going destroyed, and all the believers are going, yeah, this is what we waiting for. This is what we believe in. It's time to go. We ain't gonna be sad. You know, it's also kind of a weird juxtaposition, seeing all death and devastation and destruction, and not being sad. لا يحزنهم الفرح. The greatest terror will not let them grieve. They will not disturb them. They will not be sad about it. And the angels will greet them this day. The angels will greet them and tell them, this is the day that you were promised. This is your day which you have been promised. So yeah, on that day, the supreme hard, death and destruction angels will come to them and be like, hey, don't you worry. This is what you're waiting for. This is what you believed on. This is what you're holding on to. It's time for the reward. It's time for the reward. Mishan Allah. Mishan Allah means for God's sake.
يوم نطوي السماء كطي السجل للكتب كما بدأنا أول خلق نعيده وعدا علينا إنا كنا فاعلين.
Now I have a lot of questions about this, but it's very interesting. First it says, the day that the heaven, the sky, will be folded like the folding of a scroll. So rolled up. There's like a folding of a scroll for, it says book, but we understand it to be record. So like scrolls used to be rolled up, and the sky is going to be folded like this. God's like, okay, we're done. Time to reset. We've played our game of risk. We've played our game of believe. If life was called a game, if there was a name for the game of life, it would be called believe. Do you believe or do you not believe? Because that is the main test of this whole experience. Are you able to find your way back to God without evidence for it, essentially? But what's interesting, aside from the visual of, the sky will be rolled up like a scroll, it's interesting that it says the sky or the heaven, not the earth. I'm very curious as to why that's the case. Then the Quran says, and God says, as we began the first creation, we will repeat it. Which is like, what is being said here? Is the first creation talking about Adam and Eve in heaven? Because the Quran does say that in other parts that the earth will be replaced with another earth. And I'm trying to think, is this like a cyclical cycle? Concepts of reincarnation come into mind. Concept of it's like, okay, the first phase of the world ends and then the second phase is heaven. Maybe heaven essentially is just us on earth, part 2, the remix, but with our loved ones and those who did good. I don't know. I don't fully understand it, and I'm sure scholars have explained this in a lot of detail, but it just says the sky will be rolled up into a scroll and we will reap. As we did the first creation, we will repeat it. So just as we produced the first creation, so we shall reproduce it. Ahlan Mahab, good afternoon. How's my favorite preacher? Your favorite preacher's doing well. Did you know that the sky will be rolled up, the heavens will be rolled up like a scroll? It's very interesting. And as the first creation was created, we will be repeated. It's very interesting. And it says a promise upon us, and indeed we are doing this, which is just a very interesting visual of like the sky being rolled up, and that the earth will be I don't know if it's the world, I don't know if it's transition from this world to heaven, I don't know if it's a kind of cyclical pattern where it constantly repeats itself. I don't know, I don't fully understand, but it's cool for what it is. It's very interesting.
ولقد كتبنا في الزبور من بعد الذكر أن الأرض يرثها عبادي الصالحون.
And we have written in the Zabur is the Psalms, David's Psalms, من بعد الذكر, following the heavenly record. I kind of feel like it's following the Torah, but I'm not sure, because the David Psalms came after the Torah, right? The Zabur is the David Psalms, for sure. I'm pretty sure, because we have covered it multiple times on this channel. وَأَتَيْنَا دَاوُدَ الزَّبُور. And we wrote in the Psalms from after the mention, the record that the earth will be inherited by my righteous servants, my righteous slaves. So here we see, Psalms 37:29, the righteous shall inherit the land, which is very interesting. Because I do believe the at least the Bible's records of what Jesus said was that the meek shall inherit the earth. Which I wonder those connections. But again, I still don't trust what's in the Bible. I have not studied the Bible. I cannot speak about it. But essentially, the righteous shall inherit the earth. And again, it's that concept of, will the earth be replaced with another earth? And is this after the earth will be kind of restarted again, and then, only the good will be left on earth? And it's kind of like this life is the test, and then the second life is the reward, is the heaven. And we get to remain forever in La La Land. I don't know. Questions. Lots of questions. It's very cool.
إن في هذا لبلاغا لقوم عابدين.
Yeah, so it says, indeed, in this is a message for people that worship. Now, for me, I just go with what is being said. This is what's being said. But they've added, surely this Quran is sufficient as a reminder for those devoted to worship, is a wild conjecture of what the verse exactly says. Indeed, in this is a message for people that are worshippers. And I think it's very obvious in what is being said is a message, which, yeah, sure, we're talking about the Quran, but adding, surely this Quran is sufficient as a reminder for those divided to worship, is like, whoa, how did you get this sentence out of what is being said? In this is a reminder for those who are worshippers. Complete. It's makes so much sense by itself. I don't understand. Yeah, but not the first time nor the last time that I will disagree with common understandings of the Quran.
وما أرسلناك إلا رحمة للعالمين.
And we did not send you except as a mercy to the world. And again, usually when the Quran is addressing you, we understand it to be addressing to the Prophet Muhammad. And this absolutely applies to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. But it can also apply to other messengers, for example, if the Quran acts as a guidebook for messengers, as is a theory that I have.
قل إنما يوحى إلي أنما إلهكم إله واحد فهل أنتم مسلمون.
And again, what's the message given to the Prophet Muhammad and all messengers and all prophets of all time? Say, indeed, it has been revealed to me that your God is only one God. So will you submit? The word is Muslimun, will you become Muslims? But Muslims means something. It's not the identity that we know it today. Muslim just means those who submit to God.
فإن تولوا فقل آذنتكم على سواء وإن أدري أقريب أم بعيد ما توعدون.
Again, same message can be said to all messengers, but this is what the Prophet Muhammad was told and was said. But if they turn away, then say, I've announced to you equally. I have announced to you all the same. I've delivered the message, because that's the messenger's duty, is to deliver the message, not to make people believe. Deliver the message. And I know whether, and I in adra, and I do not know, it's hard to explain, but in adra, I do not know whether it is near or far what you are promised. Which is interesting, because I believe if we hear Jesus' word, he said the hour of God is at hand, indicating that it's near. And the Quran has mentioned that it is near, but in what frame of reference? Near in the entire existence of the universe, then sure, yeah, we're quite near the end. But near from the concept of our lifetimes, who knows? And the main message here is being told is that, all you have to do is deliver the warning and say, I don't know if it's soon or far, near, far, wherever you are, what you are promised.
إنه يعلم الجهر من القول ويعلم ما تكتمون.
Indeed, he knows the what is declared, what is said out loud from speech, and he knows what you conceal. And this is a general lesson for us all.
وإن أدري لعله فتنة لكم ومتاع إلى حين.
And the last thing he's instructed to say is that I do not know, perhaps is a trial for you or enjoyment for a specific time. The fact that the hour is not here could be a trial, could be to test you further, it could be to see if you stray, to see if you focus. Finding faith, I think, is easy once in life. Keeping hold of faith is something that requires time, effort, and energy, because it requires a consistent humbling and a consistent vigilance, and it is hard resisting temptation for all your life. It will wear upon you, it will stress you, life will test you. So maintaining faith in the long run is difficult. And therein lies the difficulty of the game Believe, aka the game called life. Do you maintain belief? Do you invest in belief? Or do you succumb to the distractions of life? And yeah. And the last verse for today.
قال رب احكم بالحق وربنا الرحمن المستعان على ما تصفون.
My Lord said, judge in truth, judge justly, be fair, be true, be accurate. And our Lord, and here's the word, Ar-Rahman, and they've added the most gracious, not the most merciful. I can't. And our Lord, the most gracious, Al-Musta'an, the one whose help is sought, the one who we lean on for help, the one who we depend on for help. Al-Musta'an ala ma tasifun, over what you attribute. وربنا الرحمن المستعان على ما تصفون. And our Lord, the most gracious, is the one who is sought over against what you attribute. Which kind of means that we're leaning on God to overcome the injustices of the world. I think. Cool. Oh, interesting. Every time I end one chapter of the Quran, I look at the next chapter and I go, oh, interesting. This one says Al-Hajj, which the word translates to the pilgrimage, essentially. And it talks about, I believe, the Great Pilgrimage. I haven't covered that chapter before, so I would assume this is where it talks about Al-Hajj and going to go to Mecca to do the pilgrimage, one of the pillars of Islam. But we'll find out in the next chapter. And I'll see you guys next Monday. Maybe sooner, but we'll see. Next Monday, inshallah. Yeah. And that's it. We always end with Sadaq Allah al-Ali al-Azim. I love you. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you. Ma salama. Get out of here. Bye.